So with that, I am very excited to introduce Dan Ferguson. After I introduce Dan, for each panelist, he's going to introduce them before it gets to their specific section. So welcome, Dan. Thank you so much for being here today. Dan is a graduate of the Colorado College and is a former intelligence officer with the Central Intelligence Agency. He's worked for NORAD and US Space Command J2 as part of the Department of the Air Force Civilian, and later worked for a number of Department of Defense contractors. He's been a volunteer with the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo since 1992 when he began riding with the Pikes Peak Range Riders. He was Ramrod Vice Chair and then Chairman in the late 90s, and later served on the board during the transition from the Penrose Equestrian Center to the World Arena. He is the current Vice President of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo. Dan, thank you so much for being here today.
Meg, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. So we're going to roll on right now, and our first speaker is going to be someone that, I don't think you could find anyone better qualified to open a discussion of the history of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo here in Colorado Springs than Thayer Tutt. We all know Thayer is the Vice Chairman and Chief Investment Officer at Pomar, so that's obvious, but his deeper rodeo credentials may not be as familiar to everyone here in town. And when we talk about the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo, we're really talking dedicated volunteers make this rodeo go around. They're the lifeblood of the event, literally, and alongside of our legions of volunteers over the years, over the last 80 years, in fact, there's always been a Tutt. There's been a Tutt on the rodeo board since the 1940s. And Thayer currently serves on our Rodeo Foundation board. But beyond that, Thayer's grandfather on his mother's side is Ed Honan. And a lot of people in town will recognize that name. He's the primary contractor who originally built Camp Carson back in the day, which of course became Fort Carson. And when the Army then wanted a really long runway to support the recon variant of the P-38, he put in a runway that we know now today is Peterson Air Force Base. So where this really gets interesting, though, is when Ed retired, he was 65. And once he finished building all this infrastructure and contracting in Colorado Springs, he went heavily into team roping, very competitively. He was 65 when he retired and started team roping. 20 years later, he won the PRCA Senior Team Roping Championship. And Ed's been inducted into the Cowboy Hall of Fame and the PRCA Hall of Fame. So more than anyone I know, Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo is literally in Thayer's blood. So that's why I say there's nobody better qualified to open our program today with a little history on our rodeo. So Thayer, I'll turn it over to you.
Dan, thank you very much. Appreciate that very kind introduction and the rodeo family history. To appreciate the early days of rodeo in the Pikes Peak region, you actually have to go back to one of the early settlers and perhaps the greatest promoter in the Pikes Peak region, and that would have been Spencer Penrose. Mr. Penrose came to Colorado in 1892 from his native Philadelphia. He was invited to Colorado Springs by a childhood friend from Philadelphia, Charlie Tutt, my great-grandfather. Together, these two gentlemen invested in real estate and Cripple Creek mining. So if you consider gold or Cripple Creek gold as the foundation of the Penrose fortune, then copper was the bonanza. Mr. Penrose actually made 95% of his money copper mining in Utah. And with that money, he turned then to building Colorado Springs great recreation and tourism opportunities. But to get a real appreciation of Spencer Penrose, I actually want to quote from his obituary on December 15th to give everybody an idea of exactly the kind of personality he was and how much it fit in the rodeo culture we have here in Colorado Springs. The quote is, "He was more than a capitalist, community builder, and philanthropist. He was a personality, a spirit, a being such as the Pikes Peak region was never seen before, will never see again. A scholar and a gentleman, a rugged individualist, a man apart, as vigorous and as sturdy as the great pioneering West he loved. He was known for riding boots, long sport coat, white collar and tie. He added a wide brimmed Western hat for a dress style. He was so affect for the rest of his life." So very much the culture of the West and the Western look and rodeo were very important to his history. He went on to build some of the greatest venues we have in the Pikes Peak region. That includes the Pikes Peak Hill Climb and the Road in 1916, his world famous Broadmoor Hotel in 1918. In 1919, actually, his wife, Julie Penrose, donated her home to create the Broadmoor Art Academy, which ultimately became the Fine Arts Center. In 1925, he bought the Manitou and Pikes Peak Railway, and in 1926 opened his Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. And his next major encounter was the creation of El Pomar Foundation in 1937. Actually, his last project he ever did was building his Penrose Arena. So, but I've gotten ahead of myself. I just wanted to go back, and I actually now want to just go through a few slides. Let me pull those up. There, thank you. So this is the first slide. Is actually Mr. Penrose with Mrs. Penrose at their home, what's known today as Penrose House. But the earliest experience of the rodeo actually started in 1921. Spencer Penrose was part of the organizing committee for the earlier rodeos held in Colorado Springs between 21 and 1927. The event typically lasted 3 days. Many of the famous rodeo personalities from the region's largest rodeo in Cheyenne, Wyoming, were present, along with Native Americans who participated in all of the events. This historic photo shows Spencer Penrose and then Governor Shoup attending a rodeo event in 1921. Moving on, there were no rodeos from 1928 until 1937, when Spencer Penrose decided it was time to form an organizing committee to open up a new rodeo. That organizing committee included William Thayer Tutt, my uncle, Jasper Ackerman, as well as Ken Brookhart. What you have here, the earlier rodeos were actually lasted 3 days, and actually then the first held in conjunction with the dedication of the Will Rogers Shrine. It's interesting, this is the Will Rogers Rodeo, as he named it, and his shrine was dedicated the same weekend. The event was held at the Cheyenne Mountain Polo Grounds, directly east of the Broadmoor Hotel. And the stands of the polo field, the challenge was that there were only seats for 500 people. And as we know with rodeo, there's always a lot of rain, or we hope not, but it is. But it was either very hot or very rainy. So Spencer decided to build a stadium at the Broadmoor for rodeo and other sporting events. And this is a program from the 1937. What we have now is a photograph of Spencer Penrose holding a model of the new stadium at the 1938 rodeo. He was very proud of this, and he wanted to make sure that more than 10,000 people could actually be present at the rodeo at a time and have covered seating no matter what the weather conditions were, hot or cold or rainy for that matter. He was very proud of this facility, and as most people know on the call, it actually was on the grounds of where Broadmoor West is today for many years. This picture just shows you Spencer Penrose did everything he could to promote the rodeo and the new stadium any way he could. He contributed over 40 horses and animals from the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the parade. He also hosted the community cowhands breakfast several days in a row because of its popularity. This is a photo that shows a group of participants at the community cowhand breakfast in 1939. As you see, the Antlers Hotel, the old Antlers Hotel, is in the background. Mr. Penrose was a consummate promoter, and he always thought big. And what you have here is a letter in response to a request from Mr. Penrose. He says, quote, the State Fair Commission he believed that the State Fair Commission, that it should cease holding rodeo shows in order that one real rodeo of the West might be held at the Will Rogers Stadium. He was so proud. Obviously, from this letter, Governor CA'S was very respectful of Mr. Penrose. Nothing changed, but it was a bold and typical style of Mr. Penrose, wanting to make Colorado Springs and his rodeo the best rodeo the state could have. After Spencer Penrose's death, the name of the rodeo changed to the Colorado Springs Rodeo, and the stadium was renamed the Spencer Penrose Stadium. And my last slide I have here, No rodeos were held during World War II. When it returned in 1946, emphasis was put on supporting military members, veterans, and charities. The rodeo was renamed the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo in 1949. And here, Thayer Tutt was the first Pikes Peak Rodeo Association president. And who we have in this picture, upper left, is William Thayer Tutt, my uncle, Marie Alla Zavistan, the Girl of the West, Leo Kremer, Barbara Brookhart, Aide, Cy Talion, and Ann Miller, Aide. On the bottom is Jasper Ackerman on the left, James McCullough, Army B. Barney, and most of these people are wearing little badges that say actually Colorado Springs Rodeo. So it's ironic that the second oldest event in Colorado Springs is the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo behind Penrose's very own Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. So it seems appropriate that two longest running events are from him. In concluding, just to understand Penrose's appreciation for rodeo as well as the Pikes Peak region, actually just wanted to give you a one-sentence quote from actually the dedication of the Will Rogers Shrine, which was done by Thurston Davies, president of Colorado College, on September 6, 1937. And it just gets to who Penrose was and how important things like the rodeo were to him. And the quote is, "It will remain forever a monument to the public spirit of Mr. Spencer Penrose and the affection that he bears for America, for the West, and for the man who typifies the spirit which has made this country great." I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of history. And now I'll turn it back to Mr. Ferguson.
Fantastic. Thank you, Thayer. Am I on? There we go. Very good. Hey, that's really cool. For anyone who has not been up to the shrine, it's a tremendous view and a tremendous opportunity to go up and do that. I'd recommend that highly to anyone who hasn't been there or hasn't been there for quite a while. Thayer, I noticed that his that one of the constants through the photos of Mr. Penrose was that concho belt.
Yes, I know. In all three pictures, that concha belt. I actually believe we have it over in our Heritage Museum, but I'll have to check with Sarah Rogers to confirm that. She's actually on today. We could let her in, she could probably tell us. But yeah, that's a beautiful concha belt that he wore. So we had it in 1921 all the way to 1939 at the last rodeo, or the first rodeo in his new stadium, and the last rodeo he ever participated in. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Thayer. And that brings us right up to post-World War II, which is a perfect segue into a unique relationship that's really developed between since World War II and the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo and our local military. To move into that chapter, I'm honored to introduce retired Air Force General Gene Renuart. Gene's last active duty assignment was here in Colorado Springs as commander of NORAD and US Northcom. And when he retired in 2010, he did what so many of our military families do. He made Colorado Springs his home. And he certainly didn't slow down. Over the last decade, he served as a senior consultant for a number of global defense-related corporations and agencies. He founded the Renuart Group, TRG, and he served on more local, regional, and state boards than I can mention. But the most important of which is that in 2016, he was the vice president of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo, and in 2017, he was the president of Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo. He's also been a member of the Pikes Peak Range Riders. So when I think of somebody who understands the way our local military and our rodeo intersect, that would be Gene. So Gene, you have the con.
Well, thanks, Dan, and it's really great to get to share some thoughts with everybody on today. When I moved to Colorado Springs in 2007 as the commander of NORAD and U.S. Northern Command, literally within a couple of weeks of taking that post, I was visited by the leadership of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo. And since we had never been assigned in Colorado Springs prior to this, this was really a great introduction to what turns out to be a spectacular city and community in their support of the military in so many different ways. But the group of leaders that came in to talk to me talked about a number of things. A few struck me. First, the goal of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo, and as Thayer mentioned, since 1949 has been really to support the military members and their families in the community, and to find ways to use the proceeds of that rodeo through the foundation to make a difference. The second was the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo and the range riders really tries to keep alive the spirit of the West, the innovation and entrepreneurship that was Spencer Penrose, and certainly of so many that came west to settle great cities like Colorado Springs, Denver, and then further west and beyond. And then to look for resources that would make the country greater. And Spencer is a great example of that with his mining interest and his transportation interest and his interest in philanthropy. And hats off to the Pomar Foundation, who has done so many things for Coloradans to make their lives better, to enhance education, and to really make the community special. So that meeting really gave me an affinity for the purpose of the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo. As Dan said, I've been honored to be a part of the Range Riders since really 2008, and I'm excited to be in this next ride coming up here in 5 or 6 weeks. But what I wanted to talk about today was really the real meaning that the rodeo has and difference it has made for military families. Since its beginning, since its repurposing, if you will, in terms of supporting the military in the late 40s, the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo and Foundation have made a huge difference in the lives of so many military families that have come through Colorado Springs, didn't really know anything about the West or certainly rodeo, but more importantly, we're learning how a town like Colorado Springs would be willing to support them. And so we've seen over the years the rodeo, for example, creating the opportunity for every entering freshman class at the Air Force Academy to come out during their summer basic training period when they're away from home for the first time. They're put into a pretty disciplined environment to literally get away in that second week or so that they're here to come and experience the rodeo on Saturdays at the North Penrose Arena. That's their first chance to see Colorado Springs, and it's a great welcome for them. And so many of them leave, and when they come back and visit, ask all the time how the rodeo is doing and express the fact that it made a big difference to them. Well, it also makes a difference for our communities on the base. Each year, the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo Foundation provides funds to each of the installations to be used to help with things like Thanksgiving dinner meals for our young soldiers and airmen who are really working paycheck to paycheck to keep themselves above water, and this provides a great help for them to have a great meal on a holiday like that with the support of the community. It helps to fund our chaplains funds, which really reaches out to families in need, especially those deployed family members where the spouse and maybe a few kids are back here away from their military member, their loved one, but certainly as always happens when the military member goes away, things break, things happen, and they need a little extra assistance. And so those funds are available to help them through a number of programs. More recently, the foundation has become a supporter of an organization called TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, which really helps military families who have lost their loved one in the service of the country, and helps them make a transition and really stays with them for the rest of their lives to make sure that they're being well taken care of. So those are just some of the examples of great support programs that the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo and its associated activities. There are a number that go on throughout the year that help raise funds that are provided into the foundation that are then divided up to the installations at the end of the summer and usually in the fall. The one final thing I'd like to say about the rodeo and its benefit to the military is that it really introduces the men and women who come here into the Colorado Springs area to a very strong patriotic spirit that lives within the Colorado Springs region. Not each night of the rodeo is dedicated to one of our military installations or commands: NORAD Northcom Command Night, Fort Carson Night, Space Night, and the others. And we provide tickets for many of those young enlisted families to come to the rodeo. We certainly honor the commanders and the senior leadership, but more importantly, we have a special shout out each night to the men and women that are serving on those installations. And it's really nice for those particular family members to arrive at the rodeo and be treated special, be respected and welcomed, and get to experience something maybe like they've never seen before. So that's a special treat that the rodeo provides each year, and it's really become the hallmark of Colorado Springs as a symbol of how it takes care of our military families really throughout the year. So I've been honored to serve, as Dan mentioned, as president of the rodeo board. I've seen firsthand the smiles and the enthusiasm that comes from our military members and their families as they show up each night from Wednesday to Saturday to see those shows. And many don't just come for one session. They enjoy it so much they're back for 2 or 3 nights of the rodeo, and certainly for the finale on Saturday night. So the rodeo has become not only an important aspect of Colorado Springs as a community, but it's really become an important aspect of the assignment of every one of those military families who come to Colorado Springs, and many who choose to stay here for the years to come. So with that, I'll hand this back over to Dan, but I want to say thank you to all the members of the Colorado Springs community who do support not only the rodeo and the foundation, but our military men and women.
Thanks, Gene. I couldn't have said it better. I agree. The rodeo is kind of an unapologetic thank you for your service to our community. It really is. And you feel that when you go to the rodeo and you have the opportunity to interact. I've met a lot of friends in the military community through the rodeo that I wouldn't have met if that vehicle wasn't there for our community. And it's one of those fantastic things that I think we all appreciate on that side. So thank you so much. And right now then, that's a really good transition now for the introduction of our 2021 Girl of the West, Georgia Strimenos. And we'll get her up here on the line. There we go. She's coming on. There we are. Hello, Georgia.
Hi.
Good. Hey, I'll say a quick word here about our Girl of the West program as I introduce you. And I'll note that just like the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo has this unique thing, we do a couple of things very uniquely. One of course, is with our military. And the other thing is a lot of rodeos, every rodeo in the country probably has a queen that people are pretty familiar with. But we do things a little differently in Pikes Peak Bust because we demand a lot more of our, what's really honestly is better termed an ambassador. If you go to the rodeo website, you'll see Georgia's schedule over the next 3 months, which has a list of engagements, probably 70 long. I think it's a pretty daunting schedule, and she'll be out there promoting the Western way of life and our rodeo, and she'll do that at military bases and regional, city, and county governments and parades and all kinds of public appearances. She does this traditionally. The Girl of the West does this traditionally with a prepared presentation, which she has agreed today to give publicly for the second time. I know you kicked this off with the first official presentation on Wednesday night over at the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame at the Spirit Mixer. But anyway, this is intended to provide you, we're kind of bringing this discussion up to present day. She'll basically, in her interaction, tell everybody everything that they need to know about the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo in 2021. But before I turn this over to Georgia, I have to note that, Georgia, you're a lot like Thayer and Gene in that you're a perfect fit in so many ways. You're a communications major at Arapahoe Community College. You're a very skilled competitor in the equine world in 4-H and Western and English pleasure, and near to my heart, the working ranch horse. And people who come to a rodeo are going to see your horsemanship on display at every performance of a rodeo this year. But on top of all that, your brother Austin, I understand, is currently stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is a airborne ranger, U.S. Army, correct?
Yep.
So you get it. Georgia gets it on many ways. But without further ado, I will turn this over to you and give us your deal.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for having me on today. I'm very excited to be a part of this. Again, my name is Georgia, and I am the Girl of the West. I serve as the proud ambassador for the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo, and I have to tell you, I cannot wait for this year's rodeo. The Pikes Peak Bust holds a very special place in me and my family's heart. We love all that it stands for, our Western heritage, the sport of rodeo, and especially giving back to the local military and their families. As you said, my brother is currently serving, so this holds a very special place in my heart. I'm proud to be a part of this rodeo family and the beautiful community that we live in. I'm proud of an event that brings people from all over together to celebrate all that is good about our country, the growing sport of rodeo, and to honor the sacrifice made by those who serve this great nation. So I am more than excited to tell you that Championship Rodeo is coming to town this summer, July 14th through the 17th at the Norris Penrose Event Center. The Pikes Peak Bust is pro rodeo at its finest and one of the most beautiful venues there is to enjoy the sport. The PRCA Pro Tour Rodeo, you will see the best athletes competing in the 7 events, which include bareback, steer wrestling, team roping, saddle bronc, tie-down roping, barrel racing, and bull riding. There's also fan favorite mutton busting, where a trophy and a medal are awarded to the winner at each performance, and these trophies are even as tall as some of the kiddos. And you won't want to miss our specialty act, professional rodeo entertainer Amanda Payne and her Longhorn Steer Wrangling extravaganza. Tickets for the 80th Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo go on sale starting May 17th. So buy yours early and online at pikespeakerbust.org to choose the best seats in the house. The rodeo runs Wednesday, July 14th through Saturday, July 17th, with performances at 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday evenings and a Saturday matinee at 12:30 p.m. The Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo is one for the true fan, the first timer, and everyone in between. There's lots going on before the rodeo too. The grounds open at 4 p.m. before the evening performances and at 10 a.m. before the Saturday matinee. Come early, avoid the traffic, and enjoy all the family-friendly pre-show fun in our fan zone. There will be mutton busting tryouts, mechanical bull riding, pony rides, a petting zoo, dance lessons, and you can grab a bite to eat in the feedlot tent. And parking is free. Our local military are honored at each performance. Fort Carson on Wednesday evening, Missile Defense and First Responders on Thursday evening, Space Night on Friday evening, the United States Air Force Academy at the Saturday matinee, and NORAD US Northcom on Saturday evening. The Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo has proudly been supporting local military and their families since 1946. All of the performances will start with the Pikes Peak Range Rider pivots and the Pikes Peak Rangerettes drill teams, followed by the Fort Carson Mounted Color Guard. After the rodeo, you can stick around for autographs from the contestants, the Rangerettes, and the Girl of the West. That's me. Then head on over to the Coors Roadhouse Saloon for live music, dancing, and cold Coors. I'm counting on seeing each of you at this year's rodeo. So the dates again are Wednesday, July 14th through Saturday, July 17th. Save time and purchase your tickets online. Discounts are available for military, first responders, groups, and children 12 and under. You can find all of this information and much more about the Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo at our website, pikespeakerbust.org. Be sure to wave to me when you see our awesome pink Perkins Ram truck all over town as I head out to represent the rodeo. Please also plan to join us bright and early on June 16th from 5:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the annual Colorado Springs Western Street Breakfast and the official send-off for the Pikes Peak Range Riders annual ride. Enjoy a $5 breakfast prepared and served by active duty military volunteers. Now you know why I am so passionate about this rodeo and everything that it stands for. So I want to see all of you at the 80th Pikes Peak Bust Rodeo, July 14th through the 17th at the Norris Penrose Event Center in Colorado Springs.
Georgia, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You've got a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months ahead of you. So I hope you're ready for that, but I know you are, and that's going to be fantastic. Is there any chance Austin's going to be able to be in town in July?
So I'm not sure about July, but he's actually going to be on leave here soon in a couple weeks. So he'll be able to come home and enjoy some of the events that we have going on prior to the rodeo, and be here for summer in Colorado, which is awesome.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Now, Georgia, then it's time to change gears a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the bigger picture of rodeo here in America today. Colorado Springs is absolutely unique when it comes to all of the national and international sports organizations that call this city home. And that includes the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. So if anyone has not been out to the Hall of Fame, just up off the north end on I-25 recently, you need to visit. George Taylor is the CEO of the PRCA. He's been guiding them in the last year in their pretty epic move, sudden move, taking the Wrangler National Finals from Las Vegas to Globe Life Stadium in Texas on, I assume, pretty short notice. So I think you made that look pretty easy. I understand it was a great success, but I know that you did that so that fans could have an opportunity to actually attend the rodeo last year, and that's something that Pikes Peak Bust and you obviously share in common is that attention for the fans, and we're excited about 2021, and I'm honored to introduce George Taylor to round out our discussion celebrating the city's 150th anniversary and our history of rodeo here. And George, tell us about our hometown PRCA and what's going on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dan. I'm not sure there's a lot to add after hearing from everybody. I think, the way it all fits together is truly amazing. With Thayer's comments, and you'll see in our history, not a lot longer than actually Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. And then I think another thing that always resonates with people is rodeo still across the entire nation is really focused on, faith, family, and honoring our first responders, including our military. And oftentimes this year during the NFR in particular, we were able to, with our television partner, Cowboy Channel, really show more about the patriotism and the way we honor those people. So really an amazing time. And then also just having young ladies like Georgia be able to be out there promoting the Western way of life. All these things fit together really, really well. So what I'd like to do is just give you guys a little bit of an insight into our history and some of the current things that we deal with, and how we're continuing to try to stay relevant in a world that's changing sometimes in ways we don't like. So with that, I'll go ahead, Dan, if that's all right. So a little bit just about the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Our vision really is about having the best cowboys and the best rodeos. We have about 700 rodeos across the nation. Last year we had right around 300 with the pandemic, which was a challenge. And we're really focused on the fan experience and what we're doing there. And one of the really unique things as a pro sport that our focus has, you'll see it there in the vision, is about positively impacting our communities. So again, each rodeo committee has some unique things that they're doing, and we absolutely love what Pikes Peak or Bust does relative to the military. But we also want to continue to embrace the spirit of the West at the same time. And then, we also have our mission, which is really around unification and bringing people together, which can be, in these days, a hard thing to get done. without a doubt. You know, we live in a very divisive world, and I'm really proud that as an organization that our goal is to bring people together and unite them toward a cause, much like Pikes Peak or Bust is, as we begin to move forward throughout the different rodeos in the nation. A little bit about our history. You'll see 1936. So Cowboys went on strike at Boston Garden, and the Cowboy Turtles Association was formed. And that was really between the promoter and the Cowboys and some of the challenges that they had between each other about who was getting paid what. And it really was the beginning of the formation of our organization. And then in 1959, we had our first NFR and $50,000 in prize money at that time. And then from there, we moved on to Oklahoma City and really got a good start with different things as we move forward. A little bit in the digital world, except it wasn't called the digital world then. In 1976, we had our first PRCA computer, which was a big thing. And then in 1979, we actually opened our new PRC headquarters here in Colorado Springs. And then we also have our Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame there as well. And Dan, thanks for the plug. If people haven't been to the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, it's a great thing to really go see and understand more about the rich history that we have in rodeo overall. And then in 1985, the NFR moved to Las Vegas, and we've been there ever since until last year. If you go down along that bottom line, due to COVID, we ended up holding with 89 days notice our national finals rodeo in Arlington, Texas. And it was a very successful event and allowed us to keep going on. Another thing in 2020 that was a first for us was our first year really with Rural Media Group and the Cowboy Channel, and having a channel that was dedicated 24/7 to Western sports. And it's really made some big changes, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go forward. I shared with you the vision and already, and I'll just emphasize again the real critical part of this relative to embracing things in the community and working closely with the communities. We're a bit of a traveling carnival, but I think the one thing that binds us together is how we work toward all these things together. Again, I mentioned to you earlier on our mission, we truly believe we're only as strong as we are united, and we're only as weak as we are divided. And I think it's really a common thing in our nation. You know, it's really what built our country. We had a common purpose and a common direction, and I want to keep making sure we do everything we can to make that happen as we go forward. And we do that with our values as an organization, being respectful, always being innovative, illustrating some of the attributes of the West, and hardworking and driving results. And again, that code of the West really being critical. What I'd like to talk about is really one of our big changes or challenges that we're really focused on is fan engagement. And we call this our fan engagement ladder. And the key for us, we have a lot of super fans, but we've got to keep growing fans at every level. And I like to tell people oftentimes that 100 million people in our country or worldwide watch the Super Bowl, and they watch it for a lot of different reasons. And, we really try to emphasize different things in our rodeos in addition to amazing competition, but we also want to be cheering on those that are supporting us, like the military, and telling really great stories with our media partners so that we drive those more people that are unengaged and casual and watchers, and build that all the way up through the channel, because that's what drives things for our sport. And one of the things that really, when I got here in 2018, that we didn't have a media partner at that time. And this just shows the history, the most immediate history of the way sports are growing generally across different categories of what is in the sports business, from merchandise to sponsorships and tickets. But that media rights area wasn't an area that we had. And so therefore, not a lot of people knew about rodeo. So we really tried to focus on that as we went forward. And I mentioned what happened in 2020 with our partner, Cowboy Channel. So we really, this year we'll have probably over 250 rodeos and performances that will be on our streaming app, which is the PRCA Cowboy Channel app. And then we also have a partner in WranglerNetwork.com where you can see a more limited number of rodeos, but those are free to see. And then on what we call cable sports is really, you'll see our rodeos on Cowboy Channel and RFD TV. And then we're working on this top tier, which is really about where we want to head with one of our national broadcast partners. And, you know, it is an NBC at this point, but we want to have a national broadcast partner. And I think we'll be able to do that in 2021 as we begin to keep trying to get our message out and a positive story overall. Really, in 2020, we had amazing results. You know, we had over 50 million viewers watching rodeo for the first time in our history. We have a television show on Cowboy Channel every week called Pro Rodeo Tonight. And then we also have a lot of look-ins that we do. And a lot of those are focused not only on, again, the competition of rodeo, but we like to say it's about humans, not highlights. And it's telling the stories of rodeo. There's a lot of amazing stories about our athletes making contributions in their communities. A lot of great stories about committees, just like Pikes Peak or Bust, and what they're doing to make a difference. So we're really trying to drive more emphasis on that as we go forward. And then the last thing that really has helped is that the rights fees that we were able to get help our rodeo committees substantially. We're able to, for the first time in our history in 2020, actually return money to committees like Pikes Peak or Bust and the different rodeo committees out there that really help them and enable them to keep moving their rodeos forward. A little bit about social media. Again, a huge change for us that many people probably don't think in the business of rodeo that you have to think about, but like everybody else, we have to do that. We have to focus on that again to get those messages out and watch people engage in these different things. Overall, we had a target and we hit that last year to have over 1 million followers. We were up over 25%, making over 284 million impressions through our social media post. And we measure our engagement, which has to do with how people engage with the content we present. We had over 3.6 million. It was up almost 200%. And then last year, we put a lot of focus on video as well. And we had almost 80 million video views during the year, up 8-fold as we went forward. So one of the really encouraging things to me about our message and about the things we do in partnership with the rodeos is the way people across the country are engaging with it. And again, it's always more than just the sport itself. It's about some of these special things that you see happen. One thing that we're working on right now is a television show that actually allows us to honor our military heroes. And we're doing that in partnership with a family here in Colorado Springs, Weston and Jody Clark. And that television show is going to be on Cowboy Channel and Rural Media Group, RFD TV too. So we are really excited about the way that we can do that and be a part of it. It's instrumental to the overall picture. Again, I just throw this up as the last wrap up. I think, we've had a lot of great moments in our history, and I think we're really just getting started. And I get really excited when I hear Thayer talk about the history and, talk a little bit about what Gene has with the military. It all fits hand in glove for us. And I think, there's a world of opportunity out for us. And I told people when we had NFR this year in Arlington, our country needs rodeo. And I really believe when you think about the principles that it represents, the country needs rodeo. And we've been excited to be a part of that. So with that, that's my last slide. And we are pro rodeo and excited to be here in Colorado Springs. Thanks for all the support that you bring all the time, and excited to be a part of it.
George, thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's pretty darn cool to be able to tap into, everybody just right up the road and get kind of the inside scoop on what's going on. I think you look back to the 30s, and I live out in Falcon, and my old neighbor was Hugh Bennett, and Hugh participated in that walkout in the late 30s. Of course, he and his wife Josie, were instrumental in getting things going. Of course, they were called the Turtle Association because it took them so long to get organized.
Yeah.
And he would tell that story, and to see where it's gone from there to that, the kind of efforts that you're involved in is a testament to the growth of the professional side of professional rodeo. And my hat's off to you for all the things that you're doing and where things are going. It's going to be pretty exciting here, I think, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we're very excited about what it looks like. We have had a series of 170 sellouts in a row in Las Vegas. And we were sold out last year in Texas Arlington in 20 minutes. And it just really is overwhelming at times. So we're very proud of the opportunity we have and feel incredibly blessed to be part of it.
That's fantastic. I mean, we love to see our contestants come in and do well, and hopefully, this is, our rodeo is kind of a boost to some of those guys to kind of make it into the national final. So always exciting to see that and to see them on their journeys. And we always, I know that they love to come to Colorado Springs, and we love to have them.
It's amazing facility. I say it's the most beautiful one we have. It's right on top of the mountain.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. That's it, when the weather cooperates with us, as we all know, it is a fantastic venue for it. And my daughters actually, their more memorable ones were what they call the chocolate cowboy days, when the sky opens up, and it's almost in some ways better than that. That's what outdoor rodeo is all about. And those contestants literally cowboy up and cowgirl up, and we get a great show, rain or shine. So it's always good.